you.
Excuse me, Mr. Schumer, can you defund the police and come on, what are you, come on, what's that? Boxing me out. Excuse me, Mr. Schumer, I wanted to ask, can you simultaneously defund the police and reduce hate crimes towards Asians? Boxing me out? You guys have a question? I have a question. So Ilhan Omar recently tweeted comparing America and Israel to the likes of Hamas and the Taliban. Many House Democrats condemn this. Do you have any comment on this? Many House Democrats condemn this. Do you have any comment on this? That this isn't legit. I think that New York citizens deserve to know the answer to this question. Sure, but you don't need to push me, guys.
City, we have a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation opportunity.
Hey everybody, I am your host Elad, and today I'm reporting to you from Chinatown in New York City at a rally to help get out the vote in the Asian community. Let's go talk to some rally goers, see what's going on. So we're in Chinatown here in New York City at a rally to get out the vote. Can you tell me more about why you decided to come out? This is State Senator Mr. John Liu.
Yes, JOHNLIU. I'm here for the same reason that so many other people are here at this rally. We're trying to get the Asian American vote out. This has been a really difficult year and change for the Asian American community all throughout the country, especially right here in New York. We have so many anti-Asian bias incidents and attacks based on hate, and this is more than ever before a time when we really need to generate the vote. And not only that, we have an exciting candidate who's going to be the first Asian American mayor of New York City, Andrew Yang, and it's really ginned a lot of people up. We're excited. So many people have already voted early, and a lot more people looking to vote on Tuesday, primary day.
Can I ask you, what is the top issue that Asian Americans in New York City are concerned about?
Well, the top issue is about recognition that we're people, that we're not animals, that we're human beings, that we're Americans. We're not this perpetual foreigner that has only exacerbated the hate against us. We're not this model minority that has split a wedge between us and other communities of color. That's what it's about. It's about helping everybody else understand what the Asian American experience is. I would say that's the number one issue.
I know we're coming off the heels of the Defund the Police movement over the past year.
I gotta go.
Can I get you this one last question?
Yeah.
Andrew Yang said on Defund the Police he doesn't think it's right for New York City at this time. What do you make about that comment?
Let me go inside and I gotta pay attention. Hey, Chief, how are you?
Good. How's you doing?
Nice to see you.
Mr. Liu, thanks for following up with me. So the most recent question I had for you was that we were coming off the heels of the Defund the Police movement here in New York City, and on that issue, Mr. Yang has said in the past that it's not the right thing for New York City at this time. What do you make about the Defund the Police movement and those comments?
The movement was about Black Lives Matter, and the fact that George Floyd died at the hands of a police officer, and that there was nationwide outcry about that, and lesser so because it was kind of eclipsed by the COVID crisis, but Breonna Taylor, the way she was killed by police. There's a lot to say about the Black Lives Matter movement, and Asian Americans have been front and center in many of those protests and rallies calling for racial justice. And that fits in part and parcel with the movement for respect and recognition for the Asian American community in light of all this anti-Asian hate.
Do you think Black Lives Matter and Defund the Police, it's like the same?
Black Lives Matter is a nationwide movement. It brought so many people out here in New York and all across the country. And just like I said before, so many protests and rallies in support of the Asian American community were not organized and not actually attended primarily by Asian Americans, but by people who happen not to be Asian Americans. For the Black Lives Matter movement marches, so many participants happen not to be African Americans. And I think that just shows how deep a movement that really was.
Can I ask you a pointed question here? Can we reduce hate crimes towards Asians and simultaneously defund the police?
Your questions obviously have a certain slant to them.
What do you mean?
There's a certain slant that, there's a predicate to your question that I think is irrelevant. We can reduce anti-Asian hate by increasing the amount of knowledge and understanding. First of all, I have a bill in the state legislature that would require the teaching of Asian American history, because Asian American history is part of American history, and yet we get like one paragraph mention about the transcontinental railroads and maybe the Japanese internment camps. So there's got to be much more about that.
Sure.
And secondly,
to be fair, for my context, Yang said defund the police is not the right for New York City.
And secondly, I don't know what conversations you had with Yang.
You could look up Yang's comments on defund the police. They're widely publicized. I'm not lying about what he's saying about defund the police.
Or if it's an interview. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Please look up Mr. Yang's comments too. I know it's been a very tense time, especially now we're running up on the mayoral race here in New York City. I wanted to ask you, as a New Yorker, what are the top issues that you are concerned about?
Currently, it's definitely crime. I think crime, mental health for sure, the funding for the police department, the funding for the MTA, and affordable housing, it would also be another one.
Yeah. Let me follow up on that, because you said two things there. We need to stop, deal with crime, but also there was the defund the police in there. Do you think we could help combat crime, while defunding the police?
I think that would be tough. I think I have a very optimistic view about everyone, and I want to say that the police are doing their best job to try and help combat crime. But obviously, there's going to be bad apples everywhere. So I don't want to use specific examples, but I want to think the best of the police, and they're doing their best job. And if we provide more funding, hopefully they could do even better. And also, by continue to developing the department, they might be able to combat mental illness as well. And I think a lot of these crimes are probably perpetrated by a lot of mental illness. And I think that's somewhere where I think some of our candidates could focus on. I think that will be a pretty important issue for me too.
We're in Chinatown here in New York City today at a rally to help get the vote out here. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you decided to come out?
Yeah, I was invited to speak out here at the rally because I've been leading a lot of marches and rallies here in New York City and across the country for over a year to stand up against anti-Asian hate and violence. And I've been able to really bring out a lot of this grassroots energy from our community. And it's not me, it's just our community just coming together. And I'm fortunate to be connected to many of these communities.
I wanted to ask you poignantly, what do you think the Asian community should do to address these hate crimes towards them?
Right now, I mean, it's a long time coming. This is decades in the making, and all the measures that we want to take for to stop the bleeding are unfortunately going to be after the fact, right? So what do we need to do? We need to dispel this a perpetual foreignness that's placed on Asian people, and a lot of that has to do with education. Asian American history needs to be taught in our history books to dispel this perpetual foreignness. And with our kids coming back to school, they're going to face a level of racism and bullying unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. So at least by knowing their history, they'll have a sense of pride and knowing who they are in our country.
I know many people in the media make this a very political issue, hate towards Asians. Many people on the left wing are saying Trump calls it the China virus and is saying aggressive things about China, and that's causing hate towards Asians. People on the right are saying it's minorities who are perpetrating these crimes against Asians. What do you make of everybody in politics using hate towards Asians as kind of like a ping pong ball in their political processes and whatever they're trying to do?
It's absolutely disgusting for people to use this to push their different political ideologies and agendas. But you gotta look at it objectively. Even before Trump was president, he was a widely popular TV personality. So his words affect the way people think. Not just Trump voters. The way people across the country and across the world see it. So when he kept on going, saying it's the Chinese virus, and calling it the Kung Flu, that's racist as all hell. I don't care what your political affiliations are. So, and it's not just him being a popular TV person. He's the leader of the free world. So there's a lot of responsibility in the words that come out of your mouth. and the lack of accountability and the refusal to take responsibility
Do you
is
think
disgusting.
do you think it's isolated to Trump, that we could point to Trump and say this is the reason?
It's a
Or is
big
it
reason. It's a
multifaceted?
part reason. It's a big reason. But it also speaks to the complete invisibility of Asians in our country as well.
I also want to follow up and ask you, I know in New York City specifically the past year, we've been seeing a lot about this defund the police movement.
Yeah.
I tried to ask this to the House Leader Schumer a minute ago, but can we simultaneously defund the police and help reduce hate crimes towards Asians?
I don't think those are mutually exclusive. There's a lot of reform that we need to do with the NYPD, without a doubt. And at the same time, there should not be volunteers, from the NYPD to investigate the hate crimes. It's like the hate crimes that happen after the fact. So if we don't give them enough resources, then who's going to investigate? Who's going to find out who the perpetrators are? It's not the regular citizens. We don't have the resources or to know how to do so. So it's a very nuanced conversation that is often simplified to clickbait headlines.
I know we've been seeing a rise in crime, and specifically hate crime in New York City. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how that plays into the rally, if at all?
Yeah, that's right. So most of the people would just be going out to anti-Asian hate rallies and saying stop hurting us. We're not the virus. Do not hate us. But that will not fundamentally change until we go out and vote. We gotta vote for the government officials who can actually listen to us and protect us. After all, when you're just standing on the street saying, please don't hurt us, no one's gonna listen to you. But if we have a mayor, doesn't really matter what race he is, Chinese or not Chinese, but if he can sit down and listen to us and giving out orders and then maybe signing on the orders and things like that, that can fundamentally change what's happening right now.
Can I ask you why you think we're seeing a rise in these hate crimes towards Asians and crimes overall again in the city?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's lack of communication. I don't think anyone is just evil. They just see an Asian face and just hurt them. I don't think so. I think people don't understand the whole thing because COVID actually stops everything. Economy, your kids cannot go to school anymore. You lost your job. So people would actually blame us for that. But if we have a mayor who can actually talk to people, communicate to people, and have them have the awareness that Asian Americans or the immigrants doesn't really equals to the virus, equals to the origin of the virus, that will help.
Last question, I promise. I know in the past year, we've been seeing a lot of talk about defunding the police in New York City. Do you think we could simultaneously defund the police and help reduce hate crimes towards Asians?
Personally, I don't think so. We need the police officer, we need the law enforcement to help us. They are very, very, at high risk. We've donated masks to them. We've donated PPE to them. They're just like one of us. They're working every single day, even when the COVID is really scary, horrifying. We can just hide at home. We can shelter in place, but they can't. They have to go out and hop in their patrol cars and still solving the crimes, problems, and everything. We should definitely support them instead of defunding the police.
Absolutely. May I ask who you'll be voting for in the mayoral race?
I guess I'm going to vote for Andrew Yang, and because this is a ranked choice voting, so I will definitely vote for Eric Adams as well, and Garcia and Maya.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Organize the voters to make sure that voices are heard and make sure that every Asian American is find out